welcome to the Redlining Podcast. Sorry we didn't have a podcast last week. It's because we were flooded. We were under 6 inches of water here in the studio/office, and it was diabolical. But there is a silver lining to this cloud. That is, we got to go and see Fatboy Slim, and he's still fanboying right now. Richard Parker, welcome, my friend.
Good, yeah.
How was it for you?
That was my interview technique.
Yeah.
When I was editing that, I had to take all that shit out.
He was shitting himself.
That's a good job you were doing the editing then.
I know, exactly. That's the problem is when you do the interviewing, and I'm not particularly used to being in front of a camera, if I'm in control of the editing, I'm really particular about what I take out. So I'm like spending hours really cleaning up my voice and taking as much of me out as possible.
Well, he sounded great.
He sounded great.
He was great.
He was
great.
Norman Cook, though, wasn't he?
Before we carry on, don't forget to like and subscribe. I need the validation. And also pop over to the Redlining YouTube channel and take a look at Richard's fantastic interview with Norman Cook, a.k.a. Fatboy Slim. Sitting across from us today, though, is another Brit. I am incredibly outnumbered. It is the wonderful Josh Butler. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
You've just come in from George FM doing a set there.
That's right. Did a little 30-minute hot mix on the drive time show. That was fun.
What's it like doing those short 30-minute? Because we were talking a little earlier before the podcast that you don't normally do 30 minutes. It's not long enough, is it?
No, not for the style of music that I play. Yep. I think I like to try and build a vibe and an atmosphere with my music over at least 2 or 3 hours. As I was saying to you before, when I'm playing in South America, I can play like 8 hours or more sometimes. So squeezing that into 30 minutes can be a bit tricky, but I enjoyed it. Yeah, it's always it's good fun doing George.
When you sort of prepare a set that's going to be only 30 minutes, do you prefer to play your own tunes, or just what sort of you're vibing at that time?
I probably had like 3 or 4 tracks prepared of other people's tunes. And then I just winged the rest of it. Once I'd done a couple of mixes, I was like into the flow, and I just went with it, to be honest.
What about sort of when you're doing 8 hours then? You're starting at a certain speed, and then do you think, right, I'll see how the crowd's doing by around 5 or 6 hours, into it, I'll sort of get into some kind of techno. Do you have like a sort of like a stage where you're not going to go any harder, for example, or do you get to go, I'm going to fucking play some Gabba now?
Depends. I'll probably try and like suss them out. There's a lot of like crowd psychology in playing those long sets, and it's like trying to push people to the limit of the music genre that I want to go to, as techno-y or as like hard housey as I possibly can, without losing interest.
And what do you do if you need a piss?
Play a long record.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, usually like a Ricardo Villalobos record. He makes like 20-minute long tracks.
Yeah.
So there's a few of them in the box.
So if someone thinks they can go up to the box and request something and you've gone for a piss, they'll be like, oh?
Yeah, exactly.
Where's he gone?
Wouldn't be the first time.
No. I was at this club once where this DJ disappeared for like 5 minutes. And I was like, well, he's obviously gone for a piss. He came back and he had a massive pie in his hand. And he was just literally eating a pie. And I was just like, what the fuck? You can go for... No, I just went for something to eat. I was like, nice. So he's DJing with a pie in his hand, like eating. I was like, good one.
It's got to be done.
Mind you, in 8 hours, you've got to sort of feed as well, eat, or do you sort of...
It depends. If it's in South America, I'm probably not eating much through the night there.
Yeah, no.
You know what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So you're not from here, obviously. You are from the UK. What are you doing here? How long are you in New Zealand for?
Overall this year, about 5 months. So last few years anyway, I've been coming over here doing the Kiwi summer because I've got family here. My dad's been here 20 odd years now. My brother lives here now as well. So I just love escaping the cold weather in the UK and doing some shows in New Zealand, writing music. I find it really inspiring being on this side of the world. So I actually wrote more music in the past 4 months than I did 18 months, nearly 2 years I was in the UK.
Oh, well, that's cool. So what's your kind of inspirations for writing music? I mean, do you sort of give yourself a set time that you're going to sort of sit down and, kind of think of something, or do you sort of, when you're out and about, you think of inspiration there, sounds you hear?
It can be both. It really can be both. I like to allocate time to sit down and just write music, even if there isn't an idea. Just throw a few ideas in and play some chords or write some grooves. But to be honest, it's finding the time these days is a bit harder than it used to be because there's a lot more on my plate now. Whereas I just used to make music all the time. I'd be up all night in my studio in my pants, just like making beats. But yeah, maybe I'm doing a bit less now, but I try and be more productive with the time.
What do you prefer doing, producing or DJing?
Producing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I started, and that's how I got into electronic music, really. So yeah, I think it will always be like my favorite side of it.
So you moved here when you were a teenager, and
Yeah.
you spent your teenage years here studying.
Yeah.
So when did you start getting into electronic music? When did you start thinking about producing and maybe wanting to DJ?
Well, I was doing it before I moved to New Zealand even. So I moved to Kerry when I was 13. Parents emigrated over here. But I was doing that. I was doing music production before that even, like quite basic stuff. It started with Music 2000 on the PlayStation. So a lot of DJs started on that. That's how Scream got into it as well. And it was like quite an accessible way to discover music production. And then I just dug into it. I got addicted to that and moved on to like Cubase and Reason and always saw it as a game. Although it's, it turned into a career. It was instead of playing computer games, I'd jump on Reason and make beats.
Shit, I'm going to tell my son, stop fucking playing Minecraft and get on and produce some music. It's the same. No, that's cool, man. I mean, it's a good outlet to have as well.
Yeah.
From a style of music, when you were sort of growing up, was house music always your thing?
It was always there. It wasn't the main thing. So probably when I first started, I would have been, 10 or 11, playing that computer game, PlayStation game, and it was more like trance then. Trance and hard house I was big on. Like Fergie had his Radio 1 show at the time. Judge Jules was on Radio 1. Pete Tong was playing more trance and stuff as well. Dave Pearce was on there. So it was very trance focused on like the mainstream radio stations in the UK. And I just naturally sort of fell into that to begin with. And then, like, funnily enough, my mum was always into house music. She was never a big raver, but she was always into house music and bought like Pasha compilations and stuff like that. Yeah. So, yeah, and so I was always subjected to that, like slower tempo dance music as well, and it was just always around. Like, even the Cafe Del Mar and Cafe Mambo stuff, like the sunset vibes, like very Balearic sounds, that was always around as well.
So obviously you were brought up predominantly in the digital age. Did you ever touch vinyl?
Yeah. There was a lot of vinyl around the house. Dad was big into his rock music, so it was mainly like rock and pop records. But yeah, I just used to sit there and watch it. I was actually talking about this the other day as Dreadlock Holiday. Mum had that on vinyl, and I'd just sit there and watch it go round and round, fascinated, like, how is this playing sound? And even cassettes, man. So I started like making beats on the PlayStation, and then I'd record them to cassette tape.
Yeah.
And then like when we'd have like kids' birthday parties at school, I'd take the cassette because there'd be a DJ there doing like party games, and I'd take the cassette and be like, "Oh, can you play this? Just finish this week." And then,
play my mixtape.
Yeah, I was literally about 11.
Yeah.
Do you still have any of them?
Oh, I don't know. I've got a couple of CDs of some early productions, but I don't know about the tapes.
So did you, when you started those early productions, was it trance that you were trying to create, or was it, sort of like, maybe more housey stuff?
It was probably anything I could at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely quite trance focused. And then when I got further into it and got a bit more knowledge about the musical theory side of things, I'd try and recreate my own, or like my favourite tracks. So I remember I was in Kerry at this point actually, and sat down trying to recreate Robert Miles' Children.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and just doing it like note for note took me forever, and I'd just try and get the whole arrangement exactly how he did it. And that was like my education for music production, really, like trying to recreate my favourite tracks.
Oh, nice. So did you study? Like, did you do a degree or anything when you went back home?
I did, yeah. So when I left New Zealand at 17, left Kerry High School and went to St Helens College to study music technology. I was really lucky because Eddie Halliwell studied there as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so he was there just a few years before me. So the teachers were like well into dance music as well.
Well, he's got some skills, that guy.
Yeah, mate.
And obviously hard house. So
That's it.
Yeah.
That was right up my street.
From your neck of the
He's from Wigan.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've obviously Gatecrasher.
Yeah.
DJ as well. So when did you get your first record signed?
It was when I was at college, so it would have been about 18, and it was just a small trance label called Encore Records, and like, they never did anything, it's definitely not around anymore, but it was just like a taster, and I just like, it was kind of confirmation that the tracks I've been making for the previous years were, good enough to get signed to a label. Yeah. And then I just, got a taste for it, and I was like, cool, right, I've had that one signed. I need to get signed to a better label now. And it just went from there, just kept doing it.
I guess it's that old cliche, just one step at a time,
Totally.
Almost one tune at a time, And then from a DJ point of view, when was your first sort of few gigs?
Around the same time. Well, it depends what you define as a gig, because I did a lot of like birthday parties when I was at school, high school, because everyone knew me as like the DJ, and I was the guy with decks and big speakers. So
was that like DJing vinyl, or was that?
No, I was CDs. So I would have loved to get vinyl, or I would have loved to have bought vinyl for my first decks, but living in Kerry, it's like, how are we gonna source vinyls, without paying a fortune on shipping, and it just wasn't feasible at the time. So I bought some CDJs.
Yeah, nice. And those first gigs, were they kind of more poppy? If you're playing, kind of school disco.
The school disco ones, it was more like hip hop. I remember people were madly into Tupac and like West Coast hip hop up there.
Yeah.
So that was never really my thing, but I'd try and slide a few hard house tracks in on the side. Everyone's just like, what is this?
So what's your trajectory though? So you're going back to the UK and you're studying. You're mixing your own stuff. What's the trajectory from going there to doing sets around the world and like New Zealand and?
So it was just very step by step. So obviously the school disco things, and then moved back to the UK and did music technology, and was still producing tracks and just refining my production skills, doing that. As well as putting on some college parties. Yep. So at the end of exam times, me and my friends would throw a party, and it'd be like £1 entry. We'd do the music all night. There was no alcohol on the bar because it was like we were all 17, 18. Oh, well, we must have been barely 18. So I don't think there was any booze on the bar. But they were like some of my first gigs. Yeah, and then I ended up getting into a club in the local town, Warrington, doing a few gigs there. And then I think, was it? Yeah, so one of my friends was DJing in Manchester semi-regularly, and one of the DJs dropped out at that night, and he called me up and asked me to come and DJ. So that ended up being my first gig in Manchester, in like the city, and
how did that go?
I mustn't have even been 18 at this point. I think I would have still been 17. Because that club got shut down eventually for letting underage kids in
and DJs. yeah. So how was that experience then? Like your first
it was amazing.
Professional experience, at a club in Manchester.
It was amazing, that one. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the busiest night in the world, but just playing the music that I wanted to play. It was a dedicated house and techno night. It was great, and again, just loved it. I had a little taste for it, and I was just like, I'm hooked, and I want more.
Yeah.
So after college, I moved to university, went to Leeds and studied music technology for 3 years up there. And then Leeds, I was just so lucky to fall into Leeds because there's such an amazing music scene there. Like the house and techno was going off at the time in Leeds. Yep. So I was out every other night.
So when was this? This is in the mid-2000s? Or
this would have been 2007, 2008, I think.
So did you get a residency in Leeds at that time?
Eventually, yeah. I think it was in the third year of uni, maybe second year of uni that I got a residency. But prior to that, there was just a lot of going out and a lot of meeting people and networking and just being in the community, really, getting known. And eventually got a residency at a night called Flux, where they started to do some international bookings. So
So if you get something like a residency, is that enough to call yourself a professional? Do you need to do anything else to keep?
No, I wouldn't say we're professional. We were lucky to get taxi fare out of that guy. We'd have to chase him down for like a £5 at the end of the night to get us home.
Did you get free drinks?
Maybe a couple, but mate, it was a long slog at the beginning. Yeah, there was a lot of playing for free, and a lot of just like partying and doing a set, and you know. It was like basically going out, and then the bonus was you get to play for an hour. So there was a lot of that for years. And I was always producing, like producing was the main thing. So, still getting records signed. And now I'm at the point where I'm getting signed to like bigger labels, some quite cool labels on the underground house scene. So things were picking up nice momentum, like in the underground side of stuff. And then I was sending out demos all the time, like I said, and one day I got this call from Chase and Status because I'd sent a record out to them. I didn't expect to hear anything back because I'd sent them like a deep house record, you know, and the drum and bass DJs with a drum and bass label. But yeah, Will called me up from Chase and Status, and he was like, "Yeah, we've heard this demo, we really love it. You know, we want to invite you down to London to discuss coming to sign this."
Oh shit!
Yeah, so this was it's called Got a Feeling, and this like really launched the next stage of my career. Then that was probably like the big break, you know.
Yep.
Although there was movement before that, it wasn't an overnight success. It almost felt like that, because that completely changed everything.
Yeah.
Did you have any moments or around that time or before when you sort of had any doubts that this would be a career for you, or you know?
Yeah, I did. Of course, you know, it's impossible to predict the future, isn't it? But I did put my eggs in one basket. Really, it was, you know, studied music technology. I was just living and breathing music.
But that's what you got to do if you're going to succeed at anything.
Totally,
you know, you've got to make that choice and go for it.
And I think I would have had a career in music somehow. The goal was never really to be an international touring DJ. Really, you know, I just loved music and wanted to be involved with the industry somehow. But yeah, getting that track signed to MTA, Chasing Status's label, that really did like sort of set me on that path. For a long time. So
I'll do a bit of research on you today, and I saw that you did an essential mix for Pete Tong in 2018.
Yeah.
Well, that was, I mean, when you got asked to do that, how did that make
I mean,
you feel?
that's a career goal for any DJ, isn't it? And that was a massive bucket list moment for me. I can retire happy knowing I've done that.
When you knew you were going to do one, what kind of preparation did you do?
A lot
into
man.
it. And,
a lot. So like we were saying things like George and live mixes, live sets in clubs. I'm not doing any preparation really, apart from putting new tracks into playlists. But the essential mix, I was like, wow, I need to think about this one properly.
How long did it take?
A couple of weeks to put the set list together. So I was like digging through my old CDs from when I was a kid, some of these like funky house compilations, and ripping vinyl. I remember buying a vinyl off Discogs and ripping it because I didn't have a copy of it. So yeah, I definitely put a bit of work into that one, and then getting the order right. My idea for the mix was for it to start off at, so I imagined like maybe 6-7 p.m. people having a barbecue, right? Because the mix is 2 hours long. Yep. So the first hour is quite chilled and like sunset kind of vibes. And then it just slowly builds into more peak time. Ibiza peak time sounds, really.
Did you have an idea of kind of a balance between your own tunes and other people's in it? Did you want to like showcase some of your own music?
Oh, I can't remember if I did put any of mine in. I think I did. Yeah, but there wasn't many. It was a lot of other people's tracks and a lot of tracks from my past as well that I wanted it to be sort of like a story of my career in a way, and musical tastes. So yeah, there was a lot of nostalgia tracks that for me personally.
So what are some of the standout, the older stuff? Like how far back do you go when it comes to the inspiration that you have? You mentioned Robert Miles before, which is classic.
Mentioned who? What? Sorry,
Robert Miles before.
Oh yeah, classic. But I think my inspiration goes back way before that, to like the late 80s, with people like Marshall Jefferson, who I was very lucky to work with at some point. Marshall lived in Manchester for a few years, so we used to meet up regularly and make tracks. But yeah, he was one of the pioneers of the whole thing, and So I was loving all that old school Chicago stuff, and then like the early 90s stuff that came out of New York and New Jersey. Loved all that, like Kerry Chandler, King Street Records and all that stuff. Masters at Work. Yeah, big fan of all that.
That must have been amazing to work with these guys, considering the history.
Yeah. Oh, mate, I mean, what an honour. So I basically started a label based around that whole idea. Started a label called Origins Records. Because for a few reasons. One of them was I was getting friendly with people like Marshall and Kerry. And the other was I felt like the scene was forgetting the history of the music. There was a whole new generation of people coming through, and me included. I'm not from the, I was born in '89, but so I wasn't around when all that music was like, I wasn't going out when all that music was big anyway. So there was a younger generation than me coming through that I felt like we needed to bridge the gap generationally. And I just wanted to tell a story of the roots of house music, really. So we started off with the Heroes of House series. It was like Kerry Chandler, Todd Terry, Marshall, Robert Owens, and then a few other like kind of newer guys as well. That was like on the B side. So yeah, the roots and the origins of the music has always been a big part of what I do.
And it's still in the music you produce today, right? I mean,
influences of it are. Yeah,
you can hear it in. I had to listen to some of your mixes over the last couple of weeks, and you can definitely hear it in there. So obviously, as a touring DJ, you're pretty busy in the summer. So do you play Ibiza? Is that kind of on the calendar? And
yeah, for sure.
How do you have residency over there?
I don't anymore. I did do for a few years at Sankey's, but sadly that closed or changed hands. It's now Octan, I believe. I haven't been since Sankey's closed. But yeah, did a residency for a few years, and then after that was just going around different clubs really, and lucky enough to play all the big venues in Ibiza, from DC10s, Amnesia, even to Ibiza Rocks, on the more commercial side of things.
Do you sort of base yourself there for a time that you're there?
No,
or you're
I always thought it was a bit dangerous to do that.
Yeah. I think like as a touring DJ, there's a lot of sort of flying, going in, playing, leaving again. So how do you mentally cope with that intense schedule?
It's a good question. I never used to think about it really. Probably like through my mid-20s, it was just living it, just like absolutely.
Well, wouldn't
it was involved, yeah, fully involved. But yeah, as I've got a bit older, a lot more conscious about my health and fitness. So that's probably the balance for me, and that's
because you're so old.
Well, I feel like touring like that takes years off your life, man. Like not sleeping and then flights in the morning, up all night again. It definitely takes its toll.
Fuck your body clock.
Yeah,
right?
mate. Yeah. I mean, body clock's out the window at that point.
So we were talking about, like, we'd done an interview with Norman Cook last week, and we did.
Did we?
We did. I was talking about and Moose T, and these guys. 60 or approaching it.
Yeah.
And even people like Carl Cox. And it's,
God, I mean,
it's like,
respect.
And they're still cracking on. You know what I mean? Clearly, they have to make big changes to their lifestyle. You know what I mean? The booze is gone. Definitely the other little party things are all gone as well. So it's definitely something you have to start looking at.
It is, yeah.
Even at 33.
I think people are a lot more conscious now as well of it, because I know Sam Devine, she's sober for a lot of the time now. She has a very, very intense touring schedule. And a lot of DJs are. There's countless DJs that are sober. There was a big thing, I remember hearing that there was a game changer for me. I remember hearing that Dubfire changed all the alcohol on his rider for ginger shots.
Oh,
and
right.
so instead of shotting tequila, he's doing ginger shots, and he still gets the little, like, the burn, the little buzz.
Especially around the lips.
He's still getting that little buzz, but it's like just being more health conscious in general is it's important, I think.
So when you are touring and you're flying, and maybe you don't do this so much, but when you were in your mid-20s, when you're touring, you're flying, and then you're straight to a gig, gigging for, 2 hours, then flying back out again. I mean, How do you cope with that? I mean, obviously, when you're sort of in the flight, because on the plane, obviously that's the time where you have your downtime, but it's not that easy to sort of relax on a plane, you know.
No,
but is that when you mentally prepare for your gig? Because you know, like you're flying for 8 hours and then you're straight in and maybe playing a gig for 2 hours.
I think the preparation for the gig's probably happening after that. Sometimes I'd get on planes and I'd just be so delirious. I'd just be like in the seat. I'm asleep before takeoff, you know.
Yep.
I just needed to rest. It was like, it's unhealthy. It's an unhealthy way of living, really. But yeah, so I'd land and I'd get to the hotel and then think, yeah, what am I going to play tonight?
Yeah. When you get up there, though, does the adrenaline skew through?
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, mate, well, once as soon as you're up on stage playing and you're in the zone, you've dropped a few tracks, you forget that you're tired.
Once you get that first track under your belt, you just like,
yeah.
That's right.
So we asked a couple of DJs this, but I'd like to ask you as well. Is there one gig that just went really badly?
It's your bomb.
And did you have not necessarily from your experience of playing, but from just the experience of, I guess the overall experience, you know, maybe you turned up and there was like the promoter was a dick or there was like a gang fight in there, just something that was, you know, that just didn't work for you.
The one that stands out, I mean, there's been a few, but technical issues are usually the one. There was one at Eastern Electrics in London a few years ago and it was like massive tent, must have been 3,000 people in this tent. And I'm halfway through my set, it's rocking, you know, it's going off and I'm in the zone. And then all of a sudden, like, all the power goes out on the CDJs. And I'm just like, yo, that's like a rude awakening from being in the flow, you know. And the sound engineer comes over and he hasn't got a clue what he's doing. So I'm like doing his job for him, trying to unplug things and reroute everything, and it's just not what you need in the middle of a DJ set, really.
And then you sort of get do you get the old comment from the crowd? Obviously, they're getting restless. They probably sympathise with you, but like they're getting restless.
You get the wee.
Yeah.
And then someone just puts on a CD to cover it all up, and it's Finger Boys. Great.
Exactly.
Thanks, guys. I'm coming back from that.
Here comes the finger bus.
Who are some of the best gigs that you like to go and watch? Like some of the best performers?
I'm a big fan of Joris Vaughan. I don't know if you know who he is. Yeah, he's Dutch DJ, like techno, tech house. He's
kind of
melodic.
Yeah, melodic. Yeah, I like Joris Vaughan.
Melodic techno stuff. Yeah, big fan of him. Kerry Chandler as well. He's amazing to watch live because he does his piano and. I've seen him do poetry on stage, and and I remember seeing him scratch with his shoes, takes his shoes off and scratching. It's just like
fun.
Yeah, it's good fun.
How much do you have much video stuff going on when you play, or is it just solely just you and pretty lights?
It depends where it is. If there's an LCD screen at the back, got some visuals and stuff going on, but I try.
You got some stuff prep for yourself, or do you?
Yeah, like logos and spinning stuff, you know.
Which is obviously like DJing now is an immersive experience, so a lot of like the video stuff comes hand in hand with like DJing.
Yeah, but I do try and keep it mainly about the music a lot of the time. Yeah, because I like playing in small dark rooms for the most part as well. That's where you get the best vibe.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier about the kind of boiler room set of being immersed in the crowd and having people like literally on top of you as you play.
Yeah.
So just have what's your kind of experiences of that, and do you think it's a good thing?
I do think it's a great thing. Yeah. There's ups and downs because like. You know, we were saying before, there's people in the crowd and people get rowdy at gigs, you know what I mean? And if they're in the booth with you and they're trying to like press buttons and hover over the decks with drinks, you know, it can be a little bit stressful in terms of that. But, you know, it's also quite a surreal feeling to be on the dance floor and controlling the vibe.
Yeah.
Because you're just in the party, you know, you're part of the event rather than being on a stage and sort of separate.
You're directing the show.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, it's one of those DJs that likes to engage in the crowd, you know, like have a look, see what they're doing, you know, are they having a good time? You know, you do get some DJs that literally just head down technically great, but
Yeah.
just not having that.
I mean,
engagement
I
with the
can be
crowd.
like that as well. It depends what mood I'm in,
Yeah.
and how long I'm playing. You know, if I'm playing for 8 hours, I'm not going to be like wave my arms in the air for the whole time.
Yeah, first track, 8 hours later.
But yeah. I mean, I love all sides of it, to be honest. But it is very music focused for me.
Yeah.
Just like a strobe light, few people. Let's go.
Give us some.
Yeah. So those 8 hour sets we were talking about earlier, are they like you're booked for 8 hours, or does it just turn out to be that, you know, like you've been booked for 4, but you know you've got this license to carry on?
Yeah, a lot of the time it's that. Yeah, you usually book for 3 or 4, and then the promoter's like, if you want to continue, you can. If not, we've got residents on standby.
Yeah.
But certain clubs are known for like extended sets. So there's one in Ecuador called the Lost Beach.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's like it's in a place called Montanito, which is a little surf town in the middle of nowhere.
That name alone sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's paradise.
Yeah.
And so this guy Cami has built this amazing club, and it's basically made out of bamboo. And he's got like a massive Function One sound system in there. So there's 2 sections to the Lost Beach. There's the main stage where DJs usually play for 3-4 hours. And then that main stage closes and you go into this little cave where they basically like shut the doors and it's all soundproofed. And that just goes on for days.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, that is amazing.
What are some of the other big? You mentioned, you were talking earlier on, and you said something about a hydraulic stage in Rotterdam.
Yeah,
You know,
Toffler.
So, what other technical kind of advances have you seen in other countries and over in Europe, for example?
Yeah, well, I'll explain for the people listening about Toffler if you don't know. It's an underground club in Rotterdam. So you basically go through this little stairway downstairs, and you enter the room, and it looks kind of small at the beginning. But the DJ booth is actually on hydraulics. So as the room gets full, the DJ booth slides back, and the room just gets bigger and bigger, and then you barely notice it happening when you're on the stage. It's that slow and smooth, but all of a sudden you're like, Jesus, this is a big place, isn't it? It's pretty busy, isn't it?
What is in this drink?
Yeah, it's one of the coolest clubs in the world, I think.
Yeah. What cities have you been to where it's just, apart from Ibiza, because I think that's pretty obvious, what other cities around the world have you been to where it's such a part of the culture, like dance music, electronic?
It's got to be Argentina, I think. I mean, a lot of South American countries like Brazil, it's massive in Brazil as well.
Yep.
But yeah, for me, I've had some amazing nights in Argentina where people are just so passionate about dance music. It's impressive, you know, and they're there for all the right reasons as well. Whereas some people in certain countries, they'll just go out to get wasted, or they don't necessarily know what the music is that night. But in Argentina, they're just so focused and like so passionate about DJ culture.
Would you say that's your favourite place, or South America is your favourite place to tour?
Yeah, I reckon so. Yeah, purely for that reason, you know, people are just so tuned into it.
Yeah. And also the weather's great, and they have a lot of outdoor parties as well, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of there's a big South American influence over in New Zealand. That, you know, there's some South American promotions, and they do a really good job in kind of pushing the boundaries of electronic music here, which is really good.
It's great for the house and techno scene in New Zealand.
Yeah, definitely. It brings that diversity and sort of pushes it forward. So obviously we are coming out of a pandemic, and we always talk about this on Redlining. So the pandemic itself, you were in New Zealand for a good portion of it.
Well, I'm lucky to have a permanent residency for New Zealand. So I did the first lockdown in the UK, the 2-week one that turned out to be God knows how many months. And then they announced that the second one was happening, and I was like, nah. I was like, my passport was in the drawer like Jumanji, you know. It's like, okay, I'm going to book a one-way flight to New Zealand.
Yeah.
So yeah, I came over here and did a few shows.
When was that?
2020.
2020, end of 2020.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. It seems like everyone sort of goes, oh, it was 3 years away, and it just seems like ages away now. We've all sort of like forgotten about it. But in those early stages of the pandemic, were you in the sort of like the full flow of gigging, and then did it all of a sudden stop, or did you kind of see something going on?
I actually just got back from an Australia-New Zealand tour and a bit of Asia. So this would have been like February 2020. Just got home and I'd planned to take 3 weeks off just to like recuperate and get myself together before going over to the States. But yeah, then all that happened. So yeah, I mean, there was a whole summer planned as well of Ibiza shows and all sorts of stuff that year. It was going to be a good year, but yeah, that got put on hold.
So did you use that time to put your head down and produce?
Yeah, well, like I said, I came over here for a while, but yeah, I did. Oh, you mean the first lockdown in the UK? Yeah. A little bit. I feel like I sort of exhausted a lot of my ideas when I was just locked in the house. A lot of my inspiration.
Crazy as well. Cabin fever hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever think of jumping on the live streaming bandwagon?
I did a little bit of it, kind of reluctantly, but I actually enjoyed it. You know, seeing people in the comment boxes loving it, that really it did make my day some days.
We had this conversation with Norman Cook about that because he was doing the lockdown mixes, and he said it was a great chance to keep engaged with his fan base.
It was, and I didn't really expect that to come out of it. I didn't expect it to be so engaging and people to be reacting as much as they were. I thought it would just be me DJing to a camera, just a one-way thing, which DJing is not at all, is it? There's feedback from the crowd. It's such an essential part of it.
So you're saying you were getting like the text messages coming up down the bottom?
Yeah.
Feeding all that.
But I think obviously a lot of people, obviously for DJs and people in the industry, like obviously their work stopped. But from the punters, you know, they couldn't go out anymore. So, you know, like all of a sudden the outlet of letting your hair down on a Friday and Saturday night or whenever it is has now stopped. We're all stuck at home. So actually having the opportunity to still listen to the music and engage, even if it is at home, and you see people like drinking their wine at home or having lockdown not lockdown parties as in people in, but you know, maybe we're in their bubble. But yeah.
Honestly, there was no lockdown parties happening.
Let that one slip.
Apart from number 10.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
It was hard though, eh? Like one of the we've talked about this before, but it's one of the most difficult things up until this year. Like it really has been this summer where we can actually look forward to, well, hopefully, but we're not worried about the next one. We're not worried about the next lockdown. You know what I mean? There's no feeling that it could happen at any moment. Whereas all of up until June, July last year. So last summer, I remember going to LAB. They were doing a gig over at Western Springs, and there was just this vibe. It was like, I'm sure we're going to go into lockdown again. And sure enough, like 3 days later, we were back into it. Shit. But there was just this constant feeling about it. And even though we were just trying to get as many good times in as we could, but it was just, you just couldn't. There was this blanket over you for about 3 years.
Yeah, it was a bit like that. It was almost like this is going to be the last time. Every gig you went to, this could be the last one for another like 2-3 months or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I went to the Shipwreck Festival and it was the same thing. I think at the day it ended was the next lockdown. And they were saying everyone has to go home and you know, there's been one case or whatever it was, or someone sneezed and they shut the whole country down.
That was nuts. Everyone says we handled it so well. It was like, yeah, we did. But then we got to a point where it was like someone sneezed and it was like, lockdown. Lockdown. Everyone go home. It was shit.
Yeah. Stop breathing,
please. Oh my God! Remember when you're like walking down the street and you had to cough or sneeze, and it's just a normal cough or a sneeze, you get something in your throat, and you
feel guilty about it,
and you do it, and you're like, oh fucking hell.
I think it's like the paranoia. Like I always liken it to the film The Thing, right? It's so like everybody is paranoid that everyone is going to give you something. So here's a case in point. So the Festival a couple of years ago, I was going to that, and we'd just come out of lockdown, and like everyone wanted to go to a festival, and I was like, if you got COVID, you are going to miss it, right? So I made sure the whole week I was like really careful about everything. And then I took my son to the Water World thing on at the beach, and I thought, I'm not going on there. So I got friend to go on it. And then I realised he's going on a camping trip. I have to go and pick him up a chair. So I went into Rebel to buy a chair. And I was like looking around, making sure I wasn't anyone. I was in the queue, and then I just heard this massive sneeze behind me. And this guy had pulled his mask down, and he had all this shit coming down from his nose. And then he did it again, and I could almost feel it on the back of my head. And I was like, "You bastard!" And then from that point, I guess my point is, apart from that revolting story, is that mentally it gets in your head, you know, and you start to think, shit, am I going to, and it affects your mental health. It made me ill, even though I wasn't. I went to get a test. I was negative. And the day of the festival, I was up in the car and I was just trying to sort of come down from this massive paranoia trip that I'd been on for the whole week that I was going to get it. Yep. So I guess my long-winded point is that it really does, like, there's so many elements to this that messes with your head, you know?
Yeah. But it just felt like there was this umbrella or this concrete all around us all the time. We were walking in jelly and just waiting for it to just like freeze and go back into lockdown again. We didn't fully have control of our lives. You know what I mean? But the one thing that we did have control of was what we could listen to and the partying that we could do in lockdown, isolated by ourselves at home. We could still do that. So the music that was coming out was still really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you actually, from a DJ producer point of view, did you feel that, like people still needed to sort of, hear music, so you had not an obligation, but you felt that if you kept producing, there was definitely going to be an outlet for it?
Yeah, I did. I actually started a different alias during lockdown that was more focused on streaming and, doing the dishes type music.
What was the alias?
It was called Denton.
Oh, yeah.
Denton.
Yeah, so it was basically in Pineapple Express, Seth Rogen's character is called Dale Denton. Right. Yeah. And a lot of people call me Seth Rogen. They're like, apparently I look like Seth Rogen.
maybe small, skinny Seth Rogen.
Yeah. So I just played on that anyway. But it was just a short-lived little alias. But exactly for that reason, people are at home, still want to listen to new tunes. And there was a lot of collaborations with that alias as well. So a lot of singers hitting me up and doing remote sessions and kept me, the singer, and the listeners busy.
Yeah. Really cool. Yeah. So now all that shit's finished, hopefully, and you're sort of back into it. Did you find it easy to just get back into the groove of going out and gigging?
It was weird at first. Yeah, it was weird at first because I went to America. I did. It was when I left New Zealand, actually. Went over to the States, and they were just starting to come out of lockdown. And each state had very different rules. Some were still in lockdown. So California was off the cards. Didn't do California, but went to Texas, Florida, New York.
Or the right-wing ones.
Yeah.
The one that didn't give a shit.
Exactly.
Come over, y'all. Party. Come on for a barbecue and a beer.
It never stopped in Texas, did it?
No.
Or Florida.
Yeah.
But yeah, in some of the states, it was a bit of a weird vibe. It took me a minute to adjust back to it. But yeah.
Because you travel quite a bit. What did you notice much of a cultural difference toward obviously you did, but what was some of the cultural differences towards the attitudes toward?
I mean, I remember San Francisco actually was really strict.
Yeah.
I couldn't even walk from the hotel door to the elevator without wearing a mask.
Yeah.
But there was I said I didn't go to California, but I actually did. I did San Francisco. You could have people in nightclubs up to like 300 people or something. So we did a small event there. No masks at the club, but yeah, going back to the hotel and walking from the entrance to the lift, they're like, put your mask on.
It was like that. It was like that here in some way.
Restaurants.
Yeah, that's right. In restaurants, you could sit down, and I'm like, well, and if you're going to go to a nightclub with 300 people, why not make it 1,000?
Yeah. But I was thinking, if only, like the hotel security, I was thinking, if only you knew where I've just come from, and seeing it inside that club, you'd be freaking out.
Yeah. I heard a lot of stories too about people who are not wearing masks on the other side of the street, and you have someone on the other side wearing the mask going, wear your fucking mask. It's nuts. The way that people think
nuts in America.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think to answer your question anyway, it didn't take me that long to readjust, It's like riding a bike, innit? I love DJing too, and love being around people. So, it felt like going home to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So, obviously, we're in the Kiwi summer at the moment. What are your sort of plans for the European summer now? So, do you sort of have a kind of schedule where you play Ibiza for a few weeks, what's your tour schedule like at the moment?
It's still coming together for the summer. But there's a US tour shaping up for June, and then around that, I'll be going to Ibiza and Italy, a few other places in Europe. Just traveling around Europe really. Like something in Scotland booked in, But yeah, it's still sort of early days to have everything for the summer locked in.
When you go touring, do you tour with other DJs or you just
Sometimes, yeah. I've done like branded tours where you know, like you get a club brand that travels around, and there'll be 3 or 4 DJs on the same roster every night. Or at the times, it can just be headline shows. You travel alone.
Do you prefer that as you sort of touring with other DJs?
Depends which ones.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough.
When you do that, though, is there a pressure when you're playing sets with other DJs? Let's say, for example, that you were following someone who was massive. Does that put extra pressure on you?
Are you saying Josh isn't massive?
No. I mean, you know what I mean? Like someone like Norman Cook or something like those lines.
I mean, if I was to follow someone like Norman Cook, of course I feel the pressure, but you can't let it get to you. You just got to remember that you've been booked to do what you do, and there's people there to see you as well. Like I actually did the warm-up sets for Chic and Nile Rodgers quite a few. Yes. Yeah, probably about 5-6 years ago now.
That's amazing.
So it wasn't exactly the same because we weren't following them. You know, we were there to do the warm-up, but it was like there was a bit of pressure because
it's Nile
Rodgers. It was just weird, people didn't know who I was. Yeah. Well, it was just a guy playing tunes on the side of the stage. But then when Nile came on, the whole place just went, wow.
What's he like?
Oh, so sound. Yeah. Like such a nice guy.
Yeah.
He'd come on stage every night and like give us a big hug. And I remember I was playing Ultranate, You're Free one of the nights, and he came on. He's like, "Yeah, tune, man." I was like, "That's not Roger." What?
So, what kind? Were you playing more sort of disco-based stuff on those tours?
Yeah, towards the end I was, because at first I tried to keep it more housey. I just don't think people connected with it because there are obviously a lot of disco fans there. So I started off by playing like 90s house, and then it slowly moved into more disco-y stuff, and then some like classic stuff, like I said, Ultranate, some crowd pleasers.
So what kind of crowds were you warming up to for Nile Rodgers?
Like middle-aged.
Oh, I meant like capacity.
Oh, the biggest one was the Roundhouse in London. So I don't know what the capacity is, but it's got to be over 1,000.
1,000 middle-aged women.
Sounds like
taking your shirt off and swinging it.
It's not a Michael Bublé concert, bro. Come on.
That's next.
So I'd say there were anywhere between 600 people and maybe 1,500.
Oh, yeah. Must have been pretty cool, though.
Oh, it was amazing. So surreal to be on stage with Niall.
So it must be, obviously, it's like a different thing when you're sort of warming up for someone like that, warming up for a show where it's, it's a big people gone to see a band, rather than sort of just gigging in a nightclub,
Yeah, very different. It took me a minute to adjust to that. But yeah, got there in the end.
Yeah. Do you find it fun, obviously?
At first, I didn't, At first, I was freaking out, like, oh my God, nobody's dancing, nobody likes the music. Like, I'm playing everything wrong. Yeah. And then I was like, actually, no one's there to see you. No one necessarily wants to dance to house music tonight. So
it's a weird one with the warm up to a band, isn't it? Because everyone's there to see this main act.
They just stood there like this, waiting for the band.
It's weird.
So once I adjusted my mindset to think, okay, I'm there just to create a vibe for the band. There's not going to be hands in the air and people screaming. I absolutely loved it then. Yeah.
I saw you did a Morning People set.
Yeah.
How was that? Because we talked to Caden about his Morning People set, and he
was that the early morning?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Was yours at the Sky Tower?
It was at the Sky Tower. Yeah, it was so good.
I was watching that
Sky Tower.
Yeah.
But it was like, I watched it today, and it was pitch black up until like the last couple of tracks where the sun started to come up.
Yeah.
Was it in the winter?
It was epic. God, you're testing me now. I can't remember when it would have been. Yeah. I don't think it would have been winter, but maybe it was like autumn or something.
Yeah. But how did you find that? Obviously, with the time and the fact that it's no one's drinking, and it's like
I
this
actually
kind of
loved that.
thing.
Coffee and bananas.
Or was it the music?
Yeah. I just loved the whole idea of it. the people were just giving it some as well, considering people literally just woken up and put the gym gear on to go raving. You know, it was people are really working out.
Yeah.
But I did feel a bit nervous for that one because we streamed it on Beatport.
Yep.
So it was all going live. You know, it felt like quite an important moment, actually. I was like, don't fucking up. But yeah, I'm really proud of that now. And yeah, watch it back now and then as well on YouTube.
How did the stream with Beatport come about then?
I've got quite good connections with Beatport through the label, through Origins.
Yep.
So yeah, just hit up one of the contacts there and told them the idea, and they were like, yeah, let's do it. You know, we provided all the film equipment, so it didn't really cost Beatport anything.
Yeah.
It's film streamed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Yeah, we had different cameras set up, and
yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it was such a cool location for it.
Yeah. Because obviously Norm played a set at Sky.
That's right.
It looked pretty cool. Yeah, what a great venue to play, eh?
Yeah. Maybe a once in a career moment that.
So, what would you say the most memorable? I mean, you talked about that club in Ecuador. Would you say that's the most memorable place that you've played, or do you have a more memorable? And I'm talking sort of like something that's a bit unusual place to play, like up the Sky Tower.
I did the one in Brighton as well, actually. That was really cool.
The 360?
The 360
Oh, wow.
BA thing.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
That was a cool one. That was definitely one for the history books.
Oh,
That's the one that goes up and down, hey?
Yeah.
It's cool. And that's just slowly spinning.
Same thing. We did a Beatport live stream in there, so that was epic.
Oh, yeah. You, I mean, something like that, obviously a little bit unusual. Do you get a bit nervous when you're sort of doing stuff like that?
For streams, yeah, I do. Yeah, for live streams, because you know it's being recorded and it's
there forever.
It's there forever, yeah.
Does it matter if a set's recorded? For example, like I think about comedians, right? Comedians go up and they do a set and it gets recorded, and then it goes out, and then they've got to redo everything, or a lot of the best material is gone. Is it a similar thing for you, or it just doesn't matter? You just change it. You're making it up as you go along.
Yeah, my set's constantly changing anyway. Yeah. It's an ever evolving set list, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's more just the pressure of it being live streamed and then recorded. Whereas if you record it beforehand, you could at least like watch it back and say, "This isn't the one." We're not going to put this one out.
Yeah,
we'll wait for the next one. But yeah, live streams, it's just like,
yeah,
here you go, here's your moment.
Yeah.
All these people going, oh.
Don't read the comments.
Yeah.
I mean, I was doing one of those morning gigs, because at night time everyone just goes, they're so wasted, they're tired at the end of it. I'm going home now. It wasn't the best, I'm going home. But in the morning, if you play a bad set all day, they're going to be like, it was fucking terrible. I'm going to stew on that all day. You've ruined my
day.
So would you? So when you do a live stream, do you watch it back and analyze it, or you're like, I'm not even
I wouldn't say analyze, but I definitely do watch some of them back, and just flick through and just relive it for a minute.
Do you sort of like, nobody will probably pick up on some of the things you'll perhaps pick up, but is there any things that you pick up and go, could have done that better, or I wish I'd done that, or I wish I played this tune here, or and then from that point of view, then moving on to the next one, it's almost like a learning process.
Yeah, I mean that happens just with every other set anyway. I'm so self-critical about my music, which is it's a good thing in a way. But some gigs, people come up to me and go, "Oh, that was amazing, I had the best night of my life." I'm like, really? I was like, that wasn't a good one,
Yeah. We're all the biggest critics that way.
Yeah.
It's a hard one.
It is a hard
one. I'm my own biggest critic all the time. Just saying. Don't worry about it.
Okay, so just going back to like gigging over here. So you've got a few gigs coming up. I'm going to do my George FM now. What have you got coming up?
Congratulations. What's going on, buddy? Hey, if you wouldn't mind, just, putting a shout out to some people that I know. No.
Is that like the Kiwi Smashy and Nicey?
I don't know. Yeah.
Smashy and Nicey. Oh,
Smashy and Nicey, don't know.
Harry Enfield. Do you know Smashy and Nicey?
Oh, yeah.
I know Harry. I don't know the Smashy and Nicey.
The two DJs that he used to.
Yeah.
Kevin and Perry.
Around the same time, he did. So on YouTube, anyone who doesn't know who Smashy and Nicey is, go to YouTube, put Harry Enfield, Smashy and Nicey. Basically, it's him and Paul Whitehouse taking the piss out of 80s radio DJs.
Oh, amazing.
And
just like that. You could take the piss out of them right now. I don't understand. Do they get up in the morning and just change their voice to this all the time? Hey, how you going, Rich? Welcome to the big show. Good morning, Auckland. It's a high of near 17, low of 17, not a cloud in the sky. Who talks like that? This is what I like about.
I think you might have been born for that, though. You
I
definitely practiced that.
Once or twice.
They had this thing where they always used to play "You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet." So I thought, "You ain't seen nothing yet."
They always have the sound effects.
Blackman Turn Overdrive.
It's like Alan Partridge as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what have you got coming?
Yeah,
up? What's coming up?
Yeah, what's
The New Zealand shows, yeah. So I don't know when this is going out, but
tomorrow, hopefully.
there we go. Then. Okay, this will make sense.
Yeah.
So this weekend,
Yeah.
Fuck, now we have to. Shit. No. This weekend.
yeah, Hamilton Friday, Christchurch on Saturday. Then next Friday is Ink Bar, Auckland, and then the next day is the 18th is the Yacht Club in Raglan.
The yachty. Yachty. What's after that? You're heading back home after that, yeah?
Yeah, well, it'll be a few weeks. Yeah, then they'll be heading home like mid-March.
Yep.
So yeah, in between that, just lots of producing. Really, got so many tracks that I need to finish off.
Yeah.
So it'll be a lot of studio time.
Well, be plenty of time for that because it's going to piss down again at the weekend.
Oh really?
This weekend?
It's another cyclone.
Yeah.
That way.
But yeah, it is good studio weather.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
every cloud.
Every
Literally.
Single fucking cloud. It's terrible. Summer. The crap thing is, it's like when it's raining heavily, it's like really miserable. And then when it stops raining, sun comes out. We can't swim in the oceans because it's
Yeah,
shit.
mate. We need to change that Auckland.
Auckland needs to get their shit together. Wayne Brown,
Literally.
fix it. Right. Okay. Where can people hear your stuff online or streaming or all that sort of stuff? Where can they go?
Spotify, always good for streaming. It's a good start. Beatport, if you're a DJ and want to buy like extended mixes of tracks. And then all the usual social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Are you much of an Instagram or a Twitter? What would you call it? Someone on Twitterer?
Twit.
Yeah.
Twitterer. Yeah.
I'm just getting back into the whole social media thing. Like I took quite a few months off. I was just like, so over social media. It's not what I signed up for to be involved with music, all that. But I was like, you know what? You just got to do it.
It's because everyone wants to know what you're doing. Look what I'm having for breakfast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Look what I'm doing today.
I was like, you know what? I just want to make tracks. I don't really want to be posting what I've had for lunch. So, but people want to see it apparently. So
That's fucking weird, eh? I'll never understand that. Fuck. Anyway, we have crossed the hour, so Josh Butler, thanks for dropping by. It's been great to have you here. Coming up next, it's the Vinker Boys. Stay tuned. I'm kidding. Thank you very much for coming in.
Pleasure,
and we will make sure that we'll pop along to some of your gigs.
yeah, please do.
Certainly at Ink Bar,
Let's do it.
as long as I don't sit on the floor.
I wouldn't advise anybody to sit on the floor in that place. Hell no.
It's so bad. Cheers, brother.
Thank
Good
you.
man. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Cheers.
Sweet.